Welcome to this episode of
Nice.
Preferably Biased, everyone. My name is Ryan Grimes. I am joined today with Devar Farhadi. Is that how you pronounce it, sir?
Yeah, Devar Farhadi.
Devar Farhadi. Nice. He's a professional boxer from Iraq. What's the town? I don't want to mispronounce it.
Kurdistan.
Kurdistan.
In Iraq.
And currently a medical student. What are you trying to get? What are you trying to get your degree in?
Well, I'm just getting in general medicine right now.
Nice.
Graduating medical school.
Nice, dude. Yeah, I'm doing.
But I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish up boxing first before I continue and then pick what I want to do in terms of specialty.
How long have you been doing boxing?
I've been boxing since I was 15, right when I turned 15. So 9 years.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I boxed for 1 month one time for like a box, but I had some medical issues in the past with concussions, so I wasn't.
Oh, word.
They wouldn't let me spar.
You got a lot of concussions before?
Yeah, I played football in high school and college, so I had a lot of concussions from that.
Football, man. Football's rough too, dude.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that shit'll get you. But I was just that guy in the corner banging on the little punching bag thinking he was doing something. I'm sure you get a bunch of those guys.
No, but that's good too, man. It's good to work out. If nothing else, boxing. You get a lot of people at the gym just who want to learn. You don't have to be fighting people.
Yeah, we were talking about.
It's a great exercise.
We were talking about yesterday. So there's not like a boxing league. How's that whole thing work out?
Oh yeah. Well, professionally, you get sanctioned by commissions. They're for universally recognized, legitimate commissions. The WBC, the World Boxing Council, the WBA, World Boxing Association, the WBO, the World Boxing Organization, and the IBF, the International Boxing Federation. And they have rankings. Pretty much they sanction fights when fighters start getting ranked and stuff, but otherwise it's just sanctioned by the State Athletic Commission. It's not like where the UFC, like mixed martial arts, they have promoters and sanctioning bodies, so to speak. Or not sanctioning bodies, governing bodies. They're mixed. So like the UFC is both a promoter and a governing body. So they have a belt, and they also manage the fighters and who they fight and who fights each other. But in boxing, the promoters and the governing bodies are separate. So you have those four belts, the WBC, BA, BO, and the IBF. But you got fighters who maybe if they belong to different promotional companies, it's a little harder to get them to match up to fight if they want to unify titles. So if one guy has it and they want to get another one, and the other guy's from a different promotional company, it might be a little tougher to make that fight. But they'll probably still make it. Otherwise, that's basically how it is. So there are four belts in each weight division in boxing, 4 world titles.
Nice. So what's harder to get involved in and get your name out there? Would it be trying to get in the UFC, or would it be being a professional boxer?
Well, you could get your name out there quicker in the UFC because the UFC is a brand, so every fighter under there has the pleasure of basically drawing, unless you're like a McGregor or a Rousey, where you're drawing fans outside of you, like you're the fan drawer. Otherwise, if I'm fighting in the UFC, all those people are in that stadium, not because I'm fighting in the UFC most likely. It's because it's the UFC and there's a good main event on. So fighters tend to get more exposure before gaining the same type of status or level that boxers would typically have to get that same type of exposure, say on social media, that same type of fame, so to speak. But every person's different. Like, it depends on if you're really skilled, it's just a matter of time. You keep winning, especially if you went to the Olympics and stuff. But for the most part, it's easier for like a UFC fighter to start getting recognized and like famous, so to speak, quicker.
Yeah, just because they have a whole body promoting them, and you gotta pretty much do that shit on your
Yeah, they're there to see the UFC, man. Like, you're fighting on those big ass cards. It's like if Mayweather signed me and I fought on all of Mayweather's undercards, like, that pay-per-view event got 2 million views, or 4 million, because Mayweather was on it. But that also means 4 million people saw me.
Right.
Or not 4 million, but a little bit less probably, because they don't
They probably wouldn't even come in until later on.
Yeah, but still like at least 1 million or 2. So that's how that would be.
Nice. So we'll jump into it with the. I don't know anything about the culture of Iraq.
I can only see my screen up here, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I
So
can't see like the.
right now, so in order to have you up in that little area I was talking about earlier, you'll just be seeing yourself on the camera because that's what's showing up in that screen currently. So when I move to the
Oh, word.
media, that'll pop up there, and then you'll see the media on your screen then.
Cool.
Just with the setup, you won't be able to see me the whole time, so I'll be some ominous voice.
Word.
Bet. So what's the general view on Americans in Iraq? Because I know that's a broad question. You probably have different spectrums of people. Because I know in America you'll have people who outright just hate everyone.
No, I mean
there.
people here respect Americans, man. They like Americans. Americans, they got a lot of Americans that fucked us over maybe once or twice, but at the end of the day, they got rid of Saddam, and that was just such a big thing for especially Iraqi Kurds, man, because Saddam was like a genocidal dictator for the most part, man. He wanted like a homogenous Sunni Arab speaking nation. Like everyone who grew up even in Kurdistan was forced to learn Arabic. They couldn't learn Kurdish, like to the point where my parents' Arabic is a little bit better than their Kurdish. Their Kurdish is great too, but their nuance in Arabic is so good because they were taught it so well. I mean, he was just trying to like, what's that word called? I forget, but I mean, at one point there's like a famous like Anfal campaign where he killed like 100,000 within the span of a couple months. He Halabja, where he bombed a city with mustard gas and just killed like 5,000. Everyone living there, like women, children, they're on the streets. There's like videos on YouTube of this stuff. Basically, for 30 years, man, he was just terrorizing us. We just hated him. So the fact that America came in here and took him out of there,
so if America,
we view them well, and we also view them well probably because the people in charge here, it's like a family's basically in charge here. And it's a democracy, but you would think it's a monarchy with the way that it's going and like their status and stuff. And they have really good relationships, I think, with America for the most part. So that trickles down too. But America did fuck us over. I think it was in 91 or 92 during the Gulf War when Saddam went into Kuwait. And basically at that point the U.S. had enough of Saddam. And so the Kurds were able to negotiate their assistance in a coup by the Kurds against him. But I guess Saddam came and reached a deal with them before it hit. So, like, without word, America just went like MIA. That's why the Anfal campaign kind of started, because it was basically like that Bay of Pigs invasion shit where the U.S. pulled out and all the Kurds went in and they got just fucking slaughtered. And not just that, I mean, Saddam was the type of guy where there was an assassination attempt or two on him before. Like, he would give a speech in a village, in any village, like Arabs, because he treated Shiites the same way as like Kurds, but any village, like even if it was Sunni or something, he'd go give a speech at this village, and on his way back there was like a suicide attempt, and he went back and he slaughtered the whole village. He didn't just like,
oh wow,
so that's the type of guy he was. And so the blowback on that was just huge, man.
Yeah, because I know personally, I'm typically a non-interventionist when it comes to most of these things. I've never talked to anybody who actually was from those areas that supported it. Is it more so the Kurds that supported America coming in?
Yeah, so the Kurds and the Arabs are different, man. The Kurds aren't Arabs, and Kurds, most of them will get offended if you. There's been a pretty long, like, tense relationship between Kurds and Arabs because of Saddam and because of other wars, like. The Kurds have always been oppressed, so Kurds are much more secular than most Arab countries. Like, we're definitely the most secular country than any other country surrounding us, even Iraq.
And by secular, you mean like you don't take a hard line stance with like getting the religion into the laws. But what do you mean by that?
Yeah, and the law is not really. It's just the people's views. I mean, it's just a comparative thing, is what I'm saying. Maybe other than Turkey, like girls can walk out here freely, like in a shirt, no hijab, nothing. Like,
Gotcha.
Go wherever they want for the most part. There's a little bit of harassment here and there, but it's not like it would be in Baghdad. It's not like it would be in Syria. It's not like it would be in Saudi Arabia, in Iran, in Jordan and Oman might be different, but it's also like the people. A lot of them hold conservative views, but not they just think differently, man, than like Arabs. It's weird. Uh, and it's the problem is here, like they're so different that they're always reaching for people who want who help them get their best interests. Like America, for example, if America has a problem with any of the surrounding countries, they know they got the Kurds because I mean we obviously welcome any Western country trying to help us do our thing. So
Yeah,
I mean we were the main and primary infantry that was battling ISIS on the ground. We were pretty much the only consistently successful, like, dependent infantry that was battling ISIS. We were the only ones that, like, the U.S. was using well, even in Syria with the YPG. But in Iraq, man, the Peshmerga, we were the only ones. And so we really helped the U.S. a lot in terms of that. And it was probably all part of, like, U.S.'s plan or whatever. They probably didn't but they knew they could count on us to do what they needed to do, whether it be like nefarious or not. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it's not like the U.S. actually cares about the Kurdish people over there. They're just, I mean.
Yeah, I'm not sure, man. But the one thing is though, I didn't vote for Trump, and I'm not like a Trump supporter or anything.
Right.
I really don't have. I'm pretty indifferent to his presidency or whatever. But there's a little highlights there where he's like different, because like, and almost similar to Kurdish or Middle Eastern customs. Like he'll look out for his kids. He brought his kids into the White House, and he like gives them jobs, basically calls them advisors, but they got fucking mad power, right? And he does favors for people that he does. I mean, I'm sure he like fucks people over and stuff, like
Oh, yeah,
business
no
wise.
doubt.
But
But yeah,
I don't know. I see a lot of like things in him that because he's 70 years old, he has a lot of like traditional fucking
just family values.
conservatives, family values, and they have a lot of those here too. And like the way he was talking when pulling out troops in Syria, because if he did that, man, Turkey was going to go in and basically slaughter all the YPG down there that were doing all of the infantry work for them against ISIS. And they're like secular. They're a lot of them were female fighters, man. They're democratic. They promised democracy and shit. Like everything, they were backing everything the U.S. was asking them to back,
And what's so they're
pushing
backing.
in, doing well.
What are those fighters' hopes? So they're gonna fight.
Those were the
ISIS?
Syrian Kurds, by the way. The Syrian Kurds are all of them are kind of separate, but the Iraqi Kurds are the ones that have their own sovereign, basically government and territory in Iraq,
Right.
where
And
they
the
have a
Syrian.
president, a parliament, a military, a
Oh wow.
police, borders.
Okay.
Like there are no Iraqi police or military members that like come into Kurdish.
Okay. Cool. So you guys you've actually fought out a nice little spot there. So is that what the Syrian Kurds are trying to do as well? They want that same
I'm
thing
sure, yeah.
in Syria.
I'm not too privy, but yeah, I'm pretty sure, of course, that they want something similar to their own Kurdistan. They just want a little area, and it just happens to be on a little border with Turkey. Turkey just has a history of fucking not wanting anything good for the Kurds, especially with Erdogan now in power.
Now,
He's pretty harsh and strict on them. So they pull out, the Americans pull out, and without their support, man, I mean, Turkey's just gonna go in there and Trump has said before, like, we're going to make sure we don't leave the YPG and stuff. Like, he tweets certain things, like, I don't know. Normally, a president wouldn't tweet some shit like that.
right.
You know what I mean? He wouldn't, like, pull out and then address, like, the controversial thing almost head on, even if it's a lie. Like, I'm
Right.
sure he might be lying.
Right.
But he straight up said, like, we're not going to abandon the Kurds in Syria. They're great fighters or whatever.
Well, that's a tough.
So, I mean, I guess we'll see.
That's a tough thing, debating on whether or not to leave in those areas, because, I mean, that's probably, how many people would you say that is that's just going to be slaughtered if we end up leaving out of there by the Turkey? Like,
I mean, a lot of people are not just going to be slaughtered, man, but, like, I mean, you think of war zones like that, and war zones like that where nothing's left, and you're the first soldiers on, and you're ordered to just kill these people. They're not people anymore. Like,
right.
For sure, there are going to be war crimes. For sure, there are going to be. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many, but definitely hundreds. Because they did the same thing in what the fuck was the name of the city? They held it off for a while. I think it started with an A.
Aleppo?
No, it wasn't Aleppo. It was a Syrian city. I forget, but eventually it fell, man, to Turkish forces. Held it off for like 2 weeks on the Syrian border. It was like headline news for a while. I forget the fucking name though. It's annoying me.
My understanding of the Syrian situation is we're just kind of over there because we want to put a pipeline through Syria.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I'm not really in the whole the U.S. intentions and
Right.
stuff. When I open up the door to that shit,
Uh-huh.
it's like I'm not gonna have anything to do with it. But if we're lucky enough to get caught in the road that the U.S. needs to take to get to wherever it's going, regardless if we were helping them or not, and we happen to benefit off that road,
Right.
whatever, man. We've been getting fucked for a while. You take what you can get.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
understand that. Huh. I've just never I've never talked to anybody that's actually in that situation, so it's got my mind racing a little bit on that. Because my whole concept
Right. I mean,
is just get everybody out of there.
they probably went into Iraq, and Cheney went in there to do what he had to do with his whole military contracts, and his brother owning one of like the contracting companies, and the billions of dollars flowing in for like building the cities back up and building the road, all that nefarious, just evil,
Right.
twisted swine of like man, basically. But at the end of the day, to get to there, he had to take out Saddam, and if he had to take out Saddam, like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you would have killed, dude. There's hundreds of thousands of people, and so many tens of thousands that haven't even been found. They're just buried in the desert somewhere. That man, dude, you don't get what that man used to do. Like his sons, his sadistic, twisted sons, would just drive around Iraq and just pick girls, and they knew they had like basically raped them. They knew they had to. He's the fucking president's son.
Wow.
He would go to weddings sometimes and just take the bride and go fuck the bride and bring her back.
Saddam
And
would?
like he can't do anything. His sons, no one can do anything. If you do something, it's not just like they're gonna kill you. No, they're gonna kill your whole family, man. Like they've done it before. They'll do it again. It's insane. It was absurd, man.
How do you think Saddam goes down if America never gets involved? Do you think
Well, I don't know actually, because he took Kuwait pretty easily. And he fucked up in that war in Iran. He probably could have won, but he like didn't listen to any of the generals or whatever. And so but he went to Kuwait pretty easily, and he was gonna loot all the oil and shit. So if no one got involved with that, I don't know.
I think he might
probably would have gone a little bit longer. But he was definitely like getting reckless towards the end. But that was also because all of those countries, God knows what he was doing diplomatically that was pissing them off, and what they thought he was going to get ready to do, and who he pissed off. But they were pretty mad at him, man. And when he went to Kuwait, that was just like the last straw. They're like, who do you think rules the world, man? Because it's not you.
Right.
It's definitely us.
Here's my
I know you live by your own rules in Iraq and stuff, and you can do whatever you want, kill whoever you want. But when it comes to foreign affairs and going into other countries and taking it over, like we're the
whole different ballgame.
commission in the mafia, and you have to come to us. You know what I mean?
Because you were talking about the Kurds being more secular. I remember, because looking back, even in the 1950s, around that back, even Iran was pretty secular. You had people that could walk around.
Yeah, that changed, man. That changed. I think the U.S. itself threw out. Had a hand in overthrowing the Shah.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's when the Ayatollah. But that's not when that's when the Ayatollah came in, the Islamic Revolution. Yeah, that's when Saddam went in there. Dude, that whole Iran-Iraq war is crazy too, man. Because my parents were basically my age during it, and it was an insane war, dude. Like so many people dying. It went on for so long. Basically, at one point, Saddam had gotten through really far. Like, it was looking like he was going to win the war. And like my parents would tell stories about airstrikes. They had to run in the basement every night. There was no food. My mom was so like malnourished she couldn't even breastfeed me. She wasn't even producing breast milk, man. Like they were just dirt poor. There was nothing because everything was going towards the war, and Saddam was fucking Kurdistan in terms of resources and rationing and shit. And so he got really far. It looked like, dude, in Iran is the Persian Empire, man. It's like thousands of years old. You know what I mean? Like if he would have taken Iran. Fuck. Yeah, but he didn't listen to his generals about something or another, man, and I don't remember what it was. He wanted to keep pushing, and anyways, it was the wrong move, and he kept killing generals that didn't agree with him, so they all just eventually were like, do what you want, dude. And at one point, man, the Ayatollah or someone came on the radio and said, it is your fucking duty to Allah, every man that is of fighting age to go fight, and every man basically out of every city and every village just picked up a gun, and they made it a fucking war of attrition, a numbers game, and they just didn't stop. It was basically a stalemate, man. They just kept, each side pushed each other to like halfway point, and then they started dying by like the tens of thousands, I guess, and started getting into the water, and then the U.S. and everyone else was like, whoa, just cut it off.
What's your opinion on, so when I think of ISIS and how they're able to recruit people, there's a section of people who want to blame that completely on Islam, and some people, like my personal belief on it is that there's a little bit of it that has to do with the readings of Islam, but then there's a lot to do with about the fact that America is bombing over there constantly, killing people, and then all of a sudden now your uncle's dead, and you hate America so much that you're going to go join one of these terrorist groups or something like that, because it's really all you got in the area to do. But do you think that happens?
I will say that I think that's rare.
You think that's rare?
The fighters, like if I'm a normal person,
right,
relatively rational, reasonable. So if another country bombs my house and my brother dies, God forbid, I don't think I'm going to go. I might join the army if they go to war with that country and start fighting, but I'm not going to go and blow myself up. So these kids, and they're usually kids, they don't have very good household situation. They don't got a mother or father that are looking after them very well. Impressionable. Come across a cleric or a imam who's also impressionable. Their parents and everyone they know, they put their faith in religion. They stress the importance of religion, the seriousness of religion. And so when these imams, not to like almost analogous to a choir boy or whatever in a Catholic church trusting the priest when the priest tells him, it's God's. But the difference here is there's no section in the Bible where it explicitly says something like, you could touch little boys and stuff.
Right.
Little boys should let you touch them. If you take an impressionable young boy and you bring him a Quran, and you're an imam who he looks up to, and you're like, look right here. It says verbatim, kill all the enemies of God.
Yeah, and then there's
well, what do you think he means by enemies of God? You know what I mean? Like, there are explicit lines of like, there's half of the Quran that was written when the Prophet was in Mecca or Medina, and then the second half that was written in the other city. And the first half was when he didn't really have control historically. I'm a little ignorant on the history, but I'm giving like
just a rough, I got you.
Paraphrase. He eventually he moved to the other when he started gaining a lot of power, winning a lot of battles. He became the dominant force, and he moved to the dominant city. His writings became much more like warlike, man. Like, there's definitely beheadings in there. There's definitely a lot of shit. Like, one of his wives was definitely 9 years old.
Right.
What's it called? There's definitely lines in there that say, if you get in an argument with your wife, first you give her some space. Second, you try to resolve it. And if that doesn't work, you can like hit her. Explicitly, pretty much explicitly. There's lines in there that say like, if you die, your will should leave more for your son than your daughter. Like, it even gives like percentages, I think. I mean, man,
so it's written in. It's just written into that book there.
There's explicit lines in there where if you don't actively incorporate a modern approach to morals, you're gonna fall into a fucking barbaric lifestyle, man. Like, it wouldn't. I think Sam Harris had a quote where if someone washed up on shore, never learning humanity or whatever, and he read the New Testament and he started cutting people's heads off and shit, it wouldn't be normal. You wouldn't be able to come to a conclusion as to why he did that. But if he went and he read the Quran and he started doing that, you'd be like, oh, well,
that makes sense.
I mean, I'm not saying it was right and he should have done it, but like, I can see where he got the idea from. It would be. Listen, man, it's hard. Like, if you sat down a moderate Muslim, so to speak, and you brought down bin Laden, he would bring up points like that the other guy at times would just not have an answer for. He would be like, well, that's not how I take it. That's the most he could say.
Right.
And it's the truth that the same type of shit is in the Bible, but most of it's in the Old Testament. And no modern Christian today follows anything in the Old Testament. They've all agreed that today, maybe yesterday that was a good idea, but today I think he means the New Testament. The problem is with Islam, man, there's only one book, it's the Quran. And part of Islam and the faith is that you can't say that any word in there doesn't belong, doesn't apply,
it's a perfect
isn't
book.
right, isn't, you know what I mean? Like that's the word of God. They take that seriously. You know how seriously? So seriously where if I draw a picture of Muhammad right now and post it to Facebook, there will be thousands of people who will actively call for my head.
Right.
That's how seriously. And there's no other thing that I can do to basically, unless like I fucking do something to a little kid on camera or murder someone on camera. Those are the only two other things that I could think of why so many other people would be wanting my head, man. It's weird.
I know there's a lot of people who practice Christianity here in America who they don't really practice it. You know what I mean? They're Christians in name primarily until they go to church like 2 times a year.
That's cool.
Are there a fair amount, especially in the Kurdish areas?
The crazy thing is there are so many, man. In Pakistani ones, well, us especially, Pakistanis in like England especially as well. There are certain demographics I know that are like that specifically, but I don't know. I haven't seen the whole world. Maybe they're all like that. Most of them. That's fine, but most of these people, like most of them are guys. Most of them, if you ask them, like, would you tolerate the same type of secular behavior from your wife? And they almost start cussing. They're like, fuck, what do you look like? I'm gonna get a fucking whore? Like, what do you mean? So there's this whole double standard constantly here in terms of a man's behavior and what he expects from a woman, even if he hasn't even gotten a wife yet.
Right, it's a completely different
that's the difference I see in that between that and the moderate Christians that don't follow Christianity really in America, because they'll admit it. They don't care, bro.
Right.
Like, no one asks their wife or girlfriend really anymore how many dudes they've slept with, man. Especially when you start getting to like 25, 26. But most of the guys here, if you're not a virgin, dude, like they'll literally return you to your family in shame.
Oh, wow. Jesus.
The day after, they'll be like, where's customer service?
Yeah,
not what I asked for.
I'm going to need to return this one.
I have the receipts. I have a video.
Hey, I bought this. I didn't realize it was already opened. But,
Right, exactly.
That's that's interesting. All right, let's move on to something not as, I guess, depressing. So the Jussie Smollett.
It's pretty weird.
Yeah, dude, that was a good talk about that. I didn't know any of that stuff.
Nice.
But with the Jussie Smollett situation, I'm sure you've been on.
Yeah, I did hear about that. I don't know why he got dropped though.
Well, so the whole thing with it being dropped is hold on, let me get you back up here. The whole thing with it being dropped. So typically, because I was listening to an attorney's podcast who is typically someone who's a right-wing individual. So when she has the opinion of this on Jussie, I take her seriously as all hell. She was saying that something like this, a non-violent crime, is someone who doesn't have a violent history of crime at all, and when it has no victim.
I see.
Then the typical case with this would just be you pay your bail, whatever money it is.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. Honestly, he definitely, in my opinion, he served whatever punishment people think I think he's served now more of a punishment than he should get, man.
Yeah, I mean,
the public outcry.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what he was trying to do.
Oh, it's disgusting. He was trying to.
Very bad. What he was trying to do is very bad. I agree. But let's put ourselves in the head of like someone who has a delusion, and a delusion being like an irrational thought that you believe even in the face of counter evidence or whatever. Mm-hmm. If he really thinks that Trump's just the son of fucking Satan and most of his supporters are just saying from his personal experiences. And if he didn't, this is going to happen to someone in America, so I might as well do it so people look out a little more. And like, if he's thinking, yo, he should definitely be punished.
Yeah, I can understand the mindset,
and
but
he
I
should
can't.
definitely pay all of what the cops had to do, and a little bit too, like a fine.
Mm-hmm. Well, right now it's 130.
Don't think he should really go to jail, and I think that the public shame he's gotten is just like.
Yeah. Right now, they're trying to get him to pay like $130,000 because they say that's the amount of the investigation, which seems fair to me. But the one thing is, so if
you know why though? Because it was so high profile. They probably dedicated so many people to it, man.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's
why it's so high.
Typically, things.
But that's what he wanted. He deserves to pay that much and some.
Right. Yeah. Typically, these things cost less than a $10,000 bail that he had with the thing. So, I mean. The high profileness of the situation. I mean, the fact that the attorney accused herself or recused herself and it went to a jury. These type of situations never go to a jury of your peers. They just literally wanted to get, because it was so high profile, the state's attorney didn't want to be involved in the decision making of this, because either way you do it, you're going to have people.
Right? Yeah, just fuck that. They just want to get away with. They just want to be done with it. Get out of here.
Exactly. And then, but my thing is this. So. If you commit an assault and it gets classified as a hate crime, you have a more significant penalty, right? So shouldn't it be the same if you fake a hate crime, you should have a more significant penalty than if you just fake a regular assault? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't think so, only because you got to think about why it's more of a punishment. If it's a hate crime, to deter like racism.
No, I understand that, but I mean, I think,
and not just to deter racism though, it's also to punish like racism more severely. And okay, so I guess you'd say, yeah, but that's what he was trying to do. He was basically trying to put that on someone, so the same thing should be put on him.
Because if you're gonna take advantage of those laws,
I think you should look at it objectively, like what's the crime, and is it? Yeah, there's like a racist undertone.
Oh, I still don't believe there should be jail time. I'm just saying more money, more of a fine, more community service. I mean, because it was a non-violent crime.
Yeah, I think so too. Here's the thing: if the investigation or whatever only cost $50,000, then I think 130 grand is good. But
right.
I don't know how much the investigation costs.
It should probably be double. That sounds.
Dude, that's probably definitely with fines imposed, man. Mm-hmm. Couldn't be that crime without a fine.
Okay, so here's a video on the whole thing. Just gonna watch this through, comment on it a little bit.
The Empire actor was charged last month with 16 felony counts after allegedly staging a hate crime attack against himself. But all those...
I can't hear it, yo.
Oh, you can't hear it? Yeah, let me turn it up a little bit. Can you hear it now?
Smollett maintains that he was a victim and that the charges against him were false. The city's mayor, Emanuel, called it a whitewash of justice. Chicago's police union wants the Justice Department to step in and investigate. CBS News correspondent Adriana Diaz is following the story.
Mr. Smollett is still...
What did the police chief say?
The police... So, pretty much... Okay, so this is going to be difficult because I have your audio on the same thing as this, so I'll just paraphrase what goes on in these videos then. The police chief and the mayor are both sitting here just talking about how this is... Because the problem is that there's going to be no criminal record because there's no charges being brought forth on him. He pretty much just is paying the bail to have no criminal record whatsoever, because they're not going to charge him with anything like that. So they're sitting here talking about, like, this is some bullshit because we know he did this. Everything, like, he should have to have these charges on his record, and it's unfair that anyone else that didn't have political ties like he did would be having this on his record for a very
political ties.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. Is that whole Michelle Obama shit?
Yeah, I keep hearing a lot of people talking about the Michelle Obama thing.
Michelle Obama just saw her grandson in him.
I guess. that's actually pretty funny.
She's like, sweetheart.
But no, my thing is, because it's just like with the Hillary Clinton investigation, there's so many people involved in that investigation. Even though she was guilty of everything, she got off because so many other people would have gone down. So everything, and they're not releasing anything to do with the investigation with Jussie Smollett now. Why would we do that? We already knew that we already knew everything that went down. Why wouldn't we go to court, especially if he's out there saying that he's innocent now, that he got off? You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. To be honest, man, I don't know. I can't give a really good. I mean, if that lawyer said what the lawyer said, that would make sense. Maybe also the prosecutor, she felt some type of way about it. She just didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe someone said something to the prosecutor. Maybe Michelle Obama got on the phone and she was like, listen. And, sweet talk the could be a bunch of things. But it sounds like it does have a legitimate legal reason, at least some legitimate legal explanation as to why the charges would be dropped. So, and I would expect as much for the charges to be dropped on such a high-profile case.
Yeah, there's no legitimate legal reason for the charges to be dropped. There's a legal, legitimate reason for having to do community service and to pay the fine.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how, if the charges are dropped, how are you still paying the fine? I mean, because
I'm not sure.
It's
weird.
It is a federal crime at this point. So he would have, if these went on his record, he would have limitations like traveling to different countries.
Federal.
Like if he ever did.
Yeah. He would. I don't think he deserves that, to be honest.
So you just broke up there. What was that?
I said I don't think he deserves that, to be honest.
You don't think he deserves to have any the federal crime on there at all, too?
Nah, man, because like the travel and everything, I just think he's just a stupid, short-sighted, immature act. I mean, I can relate. I've done stupid shit before. I don't think he's even 30. I think he's just dumb.
Yeah.
He's a dumb kid, basically.
But
I mean, he's an adult, so you should be responsible for your actions, man.
Yeah,
like I said.
He's like 36, and I feel like.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
36.
Yeah, you should be mature enough at that point. It's not like he's a 22-year-old guy going on.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
Exactly. Plus, I mean, and there's another clip on here.
Jussie Smollett, dude.
Yeah. There's another clip on here where they're talking about, like, how were you able to so distinctly say that these people were white when you gave the report, when, we have these two...
No, he definitely lied, dude.
Exactly. And then his lawyer's sitting there going, like, well, it was such a fast thing, and you can't really tell what's going on. It's like, well, he was able to tell really well when he gave his police report.
Bro, it's literally black and white. There's a saying, it's black and white. And this literally applies to this situation. It's black skin or it's white skin. There's no, I can't tell. They're either wearing masks or they're not wearing masks. And if they're not wearing masks, you should be able to say whether they're black or Nigeria, like Nigeria black or fucking MAGA white.
Plus,
those are the two colors we're dealing with here.
Right. They said that they had masks on, but you could see it had the eye line that goes all the way across. And they said that the people were possibly wearing whiteface, and that's why Jussie was. Yeah, right. Yeah, very convenient. And they found.
Whatever, man. I guess he found a little hole for him to wiggle through and claim that. There's a legitimate explanation for this shit. Whatever. He got a lot of backlash, and he'll get a lot of backlash for a while. So.
Oh yeah, well I mean, you gotta think this backlash will probably only be 2 years max. I mean, with the way people forget about things. I mean, he'll have.
Well, I don't think the backlash will be a few years. I think that he'll feel this for a few years in terms of like job opportunities and the way people look at him and all this shit. But in terms of it being like in the news anymore, I think it's gonna be gone by the end of the week.
Oh yeah, we're never gonna talk about this again after the court case is gone, unless he sues Chicago, which would look like a jackass.
Right.
Sue Chicago. But now this guy will have, in 2 years, he'll be back on TV. Probably have some role where he's like a smooth villain who's like deceptive towards people, and then people will watch that show just because it's Jussie Smollett.
Man, he can start a podcast, probably get a lot of listens. To be honest.
Probably.
In this day and age, you can monetize any type of fame, bad publicity, good publicity.
Right.
You're savvy enough.
The thing that is scary to me is there's a lot of people who barely look at the news and just read the headlines, and they're going to see that Jussie has none of these charges here, do no research into the other stuff, and think that he was 100% innocent. You know what I mean? And then that's just going to be their entire life's narrative throughout the rest of this going on.
Yeah, I've learned to stop. Man, I used to think about that so much. I used to do that stuff for stories in the news too. There's so many people in the world, man. There's so many people just reading news articles and shit. There's going to be a significant percentage that just reads the headline. I did that shit for the MAGA kid. I did that shit for the MAGA. I saw that kid's face grinning, and the headline said some shit about him cussing that out and mocking him, and I was imagining him making all these faces and getting in that dude's face, and come to find out, it's crazy.
Yeah, dude,
different shit.
I fell for that too at first. I was like, this is bullshit. You're going to sit here and like, this is what we need to be.
I didn't even click it. It made me mad. I was like, this
really?
fucking kid.
Yeah.
This piece of shit.
And then all the stuff started coming out, and then it was slowly trying to break through that, like, oh, hey, maybe this story's not what they're saying, and then everyone just calling you racist because you're saying that until all the information came out. Like, you constantly have to battle through that first little bit of, like, the lie.
Yep. Dude, he's got a $225 million lawsuit with CNN, so hopefully
I saw that.
he gets a fraction of that out of it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, they'll probably
had to move and shit.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he had to move, because he's in Kentucky. I'm not sure how many people in Kentucky are sitting over there. He's not threatening them, you know what I mean?
Oh, word?
Yeah.
I didn't know he was in Kentucky.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
He's in a big rural area. But I guess since we're on the that topic, so Facebook recently has began to ban white nationalist and white supremacist pages. I got my view personally on that, where I hate those pages. I think they're wrong, but I do think those pages deserve to exist, because I believe once they go down, those people never get any other viewpoint, because now they're off the platform 100%, and no one can come and debunk them. And now all they're ever doing is getting like confirmation bias by talking to these other guys, just like you're talking about.
Yeah, I think. Right, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think Jack Dorsey said the same thing on a podcast. I don't know if you listened to it with Rogan. He was like, Megan Phelps, who's a daughter from the Westboro Baptist Church, tried to preach to people on Twitter for years, and she got into an argument with a guy on Twitter, and throughout it, he got out-convinced. She was convinced that her beliefs were fucked up. She left the church.
Oh, wow.
She's recruiting other people to do the same thing. So that's exactly what you're talking about. But, I mean, I'm not sure, man. It's a weird gray area because Facebook is a private company. So I always say that they could do whatever the fuck they want. But they're getting so big that people are calling for them to be a public utility and shit. I don't know. It's getting to a gray zone where it's a point in history, man, where the lines are blurring. You know, it's too fast for us to start redrawing them. Right. So it's going to take a little while for our lines to catch up. And I think we're in just that time where it's a shitty period.
Yeah, that's the thing that always gets me conflicted, because I lean more on the libertarian side, so I view that as well, with it being a private company, being able to do whatever they want. But then you see all these other companies that do things like Facebook or like Twitter, and these people that get banned from there end up going there. I always forget the names of them. I don't know them.
Yeah, have you listened to that podcast, man? That they talk about just that. You should the second one, not the first one.
Yeah,
if you know Tim Pool and the Rogan podcast, Tim Pool really grilled them, man. He put him on the spot for a lot of that shit. He cited examples of certain people getting banned, certain people not getting banned, and why this was the case. And
yeah, that was a great podcast. We commented on that like 2 weeks ago. But the problem is, like, now you see all these.
Sorry, man. Excuse me. I'm eating a little bit.
Oh yeah, you're fine.
I'm about to head out soon. But it's all good. What were you saying?
Well, the problem is all these other like alternative ones outside of Facebook and Twitter. A lot of them start getting regulations put on when all these other people who get banned from those start going on those, because they think that they're just breeding hate on those sites. Yeah, exactly like Gap. Yeah, exactly like Gap. So then now you've just put those people even more underground, and there's no possible way that situation like with that girl from the Baptist church could happen. And then you get just people talking to each other. They think that they're being oppressed by the government or anything like that, and it just reinforces this terrible view that's wrong. But they, like you were talking about earlier, you don't know that because you're impressionable, just like with the people joining ISIS. And there's nothing ever to talk to you against that. So the way to do it would just be have everyone talk about it on these platforms and not ban anybody. Just seems like a fucked up little thing. But you said you gotta get out of here pretty soon?
Yeah, I got like 5 minutes. That's an interesting theory. I didn't think of that like that. It makes sense. But I would think that already in those groups, they would think that like the government and shit are out to get them. They're against them. They're their enemies. So I'm not so sure how much the reinforcement of such an idea or an ideology.
That's the thing, though. They think that now, even though it's not happening. So if it never really happens, they're not getting forced by those. They never get reconfirmed that that's what's going on. Once you do that, now they're just like, oh, I fucking knew it. That's what's going on.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if the reinforcement of that makes a significant, I guess, change in the activity of them. I would figure that they already are just 100% believe that the government is out to get them. I mean, yeah, that would reinforcement. Maybe they got a little bit of juice of motivation or stuff and go to an underground and talk with all their other, but dude, it makes sense. I don't know. I really honestly don't know. That could be true. I'd have to see, I guess, some numbers, how many people are going to Gab and what percent, because I heard the percentage of people talking on it is really not that much. It's like 5%, and Twitter's is like 2%. So,
I also don't think these movements are as serious as people give on, like the white nationalist or white supremacist movement.
Not at all, dude.
Yeah, I really don't.
Not at all. You mean the white nationalist movement? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's that.
Yeah, I think the numbers are just limited, man, and I think it's a lot of people that are just like the people from America who joined ISIS, dude. Just people who are dumb. They don't have any real meaning or whatever, and they're jumping in there. And a lot of them get disencouraged because they see people at the top. Like, I don't know if you've seen the movie American Hustle X, but when he went to prison and like the white people are doing deals with the Jews and the black people, and he was like, what the fuck? Like, these people who are supposed to be higher ranked people, the white nationalists, are doing deals with these, and you realize that the older ones don't believe in the shit, and I think that definitely keeps the kind of thing on the white nationalists or whatever, because once you start getting big enough, man, America's a melting pot. You gotta start doing business with other races, especially if you're running like racketeering and all this bullshit. And so it's hard to really pump this ideology of we're the best, fuck everyone else, when you're making everyone else money.
I hate that ideology too, because it gives you this false sense of pride in other people's accomplishments instead of striving to do better for your own.
Dude, people don't understand that, man. The human is like, humans aren't humans, man. No one should be able to, like, unless you're fucking Stephen Hawking, dude. Human is a thing. It's a conglomerate, dude, because there's no one. It's like Joe Rogan also has a bit on this, or it would be similar to this. Like, if 90% of the people on Earth died, it's only a matter of time before we move back into the forest, dude. No one knows how to keep all this shit going. No one knows how to fucking. Who knows how to do anything, man? Where are we gonna get power from? What's power? What even is that shit? You know what I mean? That's what most people would be saying, me included. Okay, we just gotta go gas to get to. What happens when the fucking gas runs out, or when we can't get it because there's gonna be inaccessible. Humans aren't human. I forgot how I came to this thing, but yeah, people should be much less. If we were isolated, man, and brought up with wolves, we would be a wolf. We would move and act like a wolf.
Well, you can see that. I mean, they found wolf boys before, kids who grew with wolves in the wild. That you get them back to civilization, and they're just crazy people. And it takes a long time to get them back into where they can actually function. But yeah, you know what? That's probably a good. Because you gotta get out of here pretty soon. That's probably a good point.
Man. Sorry about that. But I'll be happy to come on again some other time.
Hell yeah. All right. Thank you very much for coming on, guys. This has been Preferably Biased. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have more great conversations like this in the future. And thanks for coming on, my man.
Hell yeah. Anytime, man. I'll see you later. Thanks for having me.
Peace. Thanks for coming on.
Peace.